the topic of today is without faith, without devotion, no soul can cross into the divine. That is the ultimate test, or the ultimate surrender, to have the ability to, not by yourself of course, by the great masters that support the upliftment through their grace for the soul to be uplifted back into its true home and divine nature. Now, of course, faith and devotion can mean or can be seen through various levels of consciousness. Someone at the level of the pre-awakened state, before the first spiritual awakening takes place, the devotion at that level will look very different to someone in presence consciousness, or in awareness consciousness, or in divine. So it is important for us to remember that we can't categorize the word in itself to mean the same for everyone. Because according to your openness, according to the depth and the heightened awareness, this shifts into various different degrees and understanding of what it is. Just like devotion, one may at first be devoted to a picture or statue and literally devoting one to the statue itself. That can only happen if one has the identity that I am this body only. Thus, the way one would perceive devotion is through the same reality of devoting one to a statue of a certain deity, right? But if one has the inner love, the first spiritual heart awakening, has a taste of the inner love, can already devote to God or a certain deity and being from a place where they are at, from a place of heart. You see, if one is opened up to the level of divinity, the devotion at this level is an absolute merging in union with that being, that avatar, that master, and even at a deeper level in the divine, into full consciousness and beyond, one may realize that the highest form of devotion is devoting to the formless God. And then at that level, one may realize that one does not need to devote oneself to a form anymore, because they've already worked through that and now have the ability to merge in the infinity, eternity of the light of God itself. So the reason I'm just sharing this so that you can have a much greater understanding that faith and devotion has depth and a certain closeness, a certain relationship at different degrees. And at some point, that leads to go beyond any relationship. Because a relationship signifies there is me here and there is you there. There is the I and there is God. And so that dissolves when one moves further up into divinity, into full consciousness. It dissolves. It merges with the God's realization. So faith has these certain qualities of loyalty, which these are qualities that support a person to move forward, to rise up and transcend the personal, the ego I. It supports that. So qualities are also important as part of our journey from the pre-awakening stage until they simply begin to dissolve. It really depends on each and every individual. So there is the loyalty, there is the confidence. Faith has that confidence. There is no hesitation, there is no doubt, there is assurance. There's a certain belief, of course, that is on the lower levels of consciousness. On the higher levels of consciousness, there is an absolute trust. The trust that we speak of is the trust of God's will. So if that should now come to you for a moment to reflect on this, when you are living your life and things are happening, experiences are happening, how openly, how transparently are you moving through the unfoldment of the now? And that simply indicates where you are with that absolute trust of God's will. Because that is the highest intelligence, and from a personal level, people struggle. They resist this experience, they resist that experience. There's a constant inner battle, inner conflict, inner fight. And at the deepest level, that signifies that you are not in that absolute trust of God's will. Because maybe, and most probably, you're not able to see through the bigger picture. And that's where the personal self or the ego I struggles. Thus, faith helps us to go beyond the personal struggles. It is a certain relying, you rely absolutely on God's will. Even if on a personal level, some things are not just working exactly how you want them, but maybe it's exactly what you need to polish up some edges that you have, to polish up some corners. So it happens because of God's love. Because God, the source, is always inviting us to work through the personal struggles, to go beyond and beyond, to finally and ultimately realize God's nature in you so that you can live true, that divine awareness. So, on some levels of consciousness, one may not see any evidence or any proof of God's intelligence or God's will. So one, even at that level, even at a lower level of consciousness, one may still have this practice of having faith and being in reverence to God, even though they don't have enough proof or enough evidence. And that too is very supportive along their journey. Though, of course, the more you open up to higher levels of consciousness, the proof is not needed anymore. The evidence, it's so obvious. Life moving through you becomes so obvious. Everything becomes so obvious. So coming to share a bit about this Bhakti path, the path of love and devotion. And that's what it means really. Bhakti means a combination of outpouring of your love and living in reverence, in great devotion, in absolute trust towards God. And that is the most supreme expression, isn't it? It's the most supreme expression of living in absolute remembrance of God within. We're not speaking of this devotion to a statue, to a picture at that level. We're speaking of this authentic, open transparency of living in absolute trust that this will of God is at play. It touches each and every soul to the level that you really need to experience what you are experiencing exactly as it is. And even though you may not fully understand it, you have the ability within you to be in love and be in devotion and in reverence to God. And that is the most beautiful way of being, of expressing through this body vehicle on this earth. It is what we are here to remember at the deepest level, what is here to be revealed, what is here to be remembered always, at all times. Because this human love is borrowed from the love of God. And it's borrowed because it's conditional. There is a taste of love, but in comparison to the purity of the love of God is incomparable. Yeah, it's unable to comprehend the greatness or the vastness or the eternity of what that means or what that is.